Oh, it is. Bring it in. And it's Fridays with me, Jarod, and Coach Thorpe. How are you, Coach?
I'm great. As I said to you yesterday, we've lost the ball, man. We're running lean.
Yes.
It's a sci-fi reference, people.
Just a little update for all of you loyal TrueHoop watchers and listeners. We're moving to a new schedule. Mondays will be hosted by the great Tom Havistro, aka The Big Number. Fridays will be Fridays with Jarod, as always, with Coach Thorpe. And depending on how things go and what needs to happen, anything special or a special guest, we will do Wednesdays. You know, as CEO of a startup media company as Henry is, he's got a lot of things he's got to do. I mean, number one, he's trying to take down the capitalist machine, which, as we all know, it's a daunting task. And so he needs to have all his energies focused on that right now. And so we will ably guide this ship as we move forward. So
hold on, Rob. Before we get to your video, let me just say one comment about Henry. I agree with everything you said, but I'm allowing for the possibility that all of this is happening because his Blazers are just kind of sinking in the standings. So I'm just going to leave it there, right? I'm just going to say that that's a fact. We're moving on. All right, go ahead, Judy.
Shots fired. Henry just caught a stray. Anyway, Judy, let us start with this week's TrueHoop TV video.
Rings are great, but are they the only thing that's great? MVP seasons are special, and only end in a title about a quarter of the time. Many MVPs never win titles. Somewhere along the way, rings culture has gotten us stuck on stupid, and we don't appreciate how difficult it is to win in this hyper-competitive league. Jason Tatum has been to 2 conference finals in his first 3 seasons. Isn't that incredible? Giannis has been to 1 conference finals. Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Steve Nash, all incredible, none with titles. This shit is hard. Let's stop looking at ring count as more than what it is. Superb talent and play, for sure, but a hell of a lot of good fortune. Here's the solution. Let's learn from the NCAA and promote the Final Four. Making the conference finals is incredible. Over the past 5 seasons, if you were on one of the All-NBA teams and you were not a teammate of LeBron James or Steph Curry, you had a less than 10% chance of making the conference finals. Great players often don't win titles. This season, expect it to be even more random. Between LeBron's ankles, Joel Embiid's knee, Kevin Durant, and James Harden's hamstrings, the title will go to the contender lucky enough to be healthy come summertime. Why don't we celebrate the achievement of advancing to the conference finals? Something the vast majority of NBA players will never do. If you've been a player on one of the last 4 team standings in the torture chamber that is the NBA playoffs, salute.
Good stuff.
Yes, sir. So we're going to talk about the way we're doing our show now. We're going to call it Let's Play Jazz. And one of the things that everyone knows, Coach Thorpe wrote a book called Basketball is Jazz. And what this really is all about is there's art and there's science. And in order to make this wonderful concoction that we call life, whether it be basketball, whether it be winning a title, whatever the entity is, it takes a combination of both those things, right? The structure and know-how and the knowledge of science. So in jazz, how to actually play an instrument and know your cues and your beats and all that. And then the art form comes in, right? How to manage and play within and off of other people to make this a beautiful, melodious sounding thing. And that's ultimately what we hope to bring you guys every day with what we do on True, whether it be video, whether it be our writing, whether it be this segment we're doing now, Let's Play Jazz. And that video was really just honestly, look, guys, winning titles, hard as shit. And it's luck. One out of 30. It's really, really, really hard. Sometimes, these Final Fours, if you are one of the last 4 teams in the NBA, that's a hell of a season, especially this season, given everything that's going on.
Yeah, we'll pick up on that after we get through our segments because I think you make a brilliant point.
All right. Now, we are going to start with first thing, Nikola Jokic. Now, I've talked about him, Coach, the last 3 or 4 True Hoops. And look, Owen Phillips of F5 did this awesome article and says Nikola Jokic is the big table topper. And basically what that is he's at the top of just about 35 of the 90 NBA stat tables that exist in the NBA in terms of tracking how players are doing. He's fucking phenomenal. He's so good at basketball. It's not even funny. Again, I said this last week. I'll reiterate it again this week. He may not be, if you ask me who was the best player in the world, he might not be that. But if you ask me who was having the best NBA season, it is Nikola Jokic and what he means to the Denver Nuggets. He leads the NBA in all these categories. Win shares for 48, offensive win shares, box plus minus, offensive box plus minus, value over replacement player, field goals made, 2-point field goals made, and 2-point field goal attempts. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you, but this guy is incredible.
Yes, we'll be talking about him after we get through this round. He is a joke. But you know what's the joke, Jarod? Chris Paul.
Yeah.
So the other night, the Phoenix played back-to-back Utah, who was number 1 in the league, and then the Clippers, who are right behind them in the standings, 1, 2, 3. And here's a play against the Jazz in overtime, up 3. Chris Paul hits a long 3 to put him up 6 with a minute to play. Game over at that point. But all through that fourth period overtime, it was the Chris Paul show. Now, Devin Booker was amazing. Donovan Mitchell scored 40, but it was the Chris Paul show. He would kind of ferret out Rudy Gobert on ball screen, spread the floor, and then the idea was just make sure you get the shot off against Gobert because no one on the Jazz could rebound. They had 16 offensive rebounds that game, but a good number of them were because of Chris Paul pulling Gobert out on purpose. So he's played 16 seasons. He's had a PR of 20 or more in all of them but one, which was just below. I don't remember if it was the first year he got to Houston, where it's hard to put up big numbers next to James Harden. But it was 19 and changed that year. So he's this amazing player. And if you remember that Last Dance video, the documentary that Henry won't watch, Jordan talked about he would initially be in the league and just trust his athleticism. And then his mind takes over. Pro athletes have this all the time. Chris Paul is going on 36 years of age next month. And so it's not fair. It's really unfair. A guy that smart who still can move the way he can move, yeah, he's going to dominate for some time to come. He's got a $40+ million option that he may turn down because someone might pay him. You and I should talk about this. I don't know, 3 or 90 million. I don't know what the number is. Holiday just got 40 a year, whatever, for his extension. So Chris Paul is not the MVP Jokic is, but he is someone to talk about. And they might make the conference finals, the Final Four.
And to follow up on the Chris Paul point and the video that we started with, Chris Paul has played in 1 conference finals in his NBA career. Like, again, that doesn't mean he's a loser. It means it's hard to win basketball games. And this is Chris Paul.
One of the best ever.
It's hard to do this stuff, people. All right, switching topics here. So we got more and more people getting vaccinated. We are, we're seeing things start to look slightly better. But we're not quite out of the woods yet, folks. We're still seeing rising cases nationwide, particularly with the variants. And we're also seeing people who are getting the vaccine and think it's like the magic free pass at Disneyland, which means I can do whatever I want now. And it's like, yo, no. Slow down and pump the brakes. You still got to keep wearing your mask. You still need to be distant. You still need to be washing your hands, doing all the relevant things because, as always, there are vulnerable parts of the population that have not been able to get access to this and who still need to be protected from this deadly virus. So my only point to everybody is if we just keep being diligent and hold on for a little bit, the summer will be good. We'll have a good time. Don't, as coach always says, drop the ball now that we're this close. Don't fumble the bag, people.
Yeah, don't spike it. Don't spike the ball on the 1 yard line if it's a touchdown. You're not in the end zone yet. And I read that article. It's going to be a bit like we got some, even after we're over, we're not over it.
Right.
Yeah, there's no parade as that once hope there might be. So this is an ongoing story. NPR is the latest to kind of move the football down the field regarding the NRA basically being a foreign asset working with Russia. And right now, almost every day, I can't even watch the news, Jarod, because I know that another shooting is going to happen, and maybe I'm just a stupid neurotic dad, but like honestly, if I get shot, all right, I've lived 56 years, but my kids are not even 20 years old yet, and I don't want to have to think about where they're going and what's going on. I have friends all over the country, and I end up thinking about stuff like this and where was the shooting at? Who do I know in that community? So not only do we have the NRA who has pushed these gun measures and they're fighting the gun restrictions for so long now. But we also know they've been working with the Russians. Like you almost can't script a bigger train wreck than the whole idea that guns are an important and good part of our culture. They have been disastrous in every way, shape, and form. And to find out that the people pushing that agenda have been working against us, so to speak, and with intelligence. So if I run into, I'm going to the beach with my wife tonight to hang out. If anyone's out there with that big American flag or a gun sticker, I might just have to say something about this article because I'm pretty much at my wit's end about it.
I mean, we needn't look further than every other civilized part of the world. Like we're the only country that seems to have problems with mass shootings and guns. Like, and it doesn't really take too long to figure out, well, why is that, right? Like, and the NRA and its control and what they're able to do vis-a-vis politics and putting in people in charge is problematic, right? And this is part of the reason why we have what we have.
Yeah.
Back to basketball. As some of you know, Kevin Durant has a podcast and it's called The Etceteras, and he had Draymond Green, his former teammate, on recently. And I always enjoy when athletes go on each other's podcasts because there is a familiarity and a level of like openness that they give one another that they just don't give us, right? For obvious reasons. You can go ahead and play that, Judy.
Trouble. It's delayed and coming on.
Maybe.
I purposely didn't watch it because I wanted to see it live.
This shit can be like this whole narrative of like you call Kevin crying from the parking lot. I'm like, yo, this shit can be like y'all added a theatrical sense to make this shit a movie. Like, you gotta make shit for TV. You gotta add on a little.
I know.
So like people just start pouring on, bro. But I wasn't about to come out and fight it. Like at the end of the day,
It was just
however y'all think Kevin got here, that's what your mind roll with that
go
shit.
with it.
That's what helps you out.
Go with it. And also, this for OKC fans. They thought me and Dre was hanging out, literally like chilling with each other during the conference finals. And when I heard that shit, I was like, man, what the who do y'all think I am? Who do you think Draymond would hang out with me during the conference finals, like over my house? Like, come on, stop the bullshit.
Exactly.
I love that because it's so interesting because so much of the narrative we get from guys like Barkley and the older guard is we compete, these guys aren't our friends, and that whole podcast is very interesting. If you listen to it, they give really good context. I mean, Jordan and Danny Ainge played golf together during the '86 conference finals. Like, talk about like people hanging out and doing stuff. And those guys still competed on the floor. Same thing that Draymond and Kevin Durant are saying. Like, we didn't hang out during the conference finals. I wanted to kick that dude's ass. Yeah, after it's over, we're talking and whatever. And I think it's that whole idea that people understand that while for us as fans and media and whatever, we view sports as one thing. These people view it as something different, right? Yes, they're competitive and whatever. It's also their jobs, right? Once they leave their jobs, series ends, season ends, whatever, real life has to continue on, right? And these are my friends. These are people like, so I'm going to call them and hang out and do whatever. That's just life, people. So I thought it was a cool podcast. And if you guys got some time, listen to the whole thing. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, we're going to be circling back on a number of these things. New York Times, I sometimes there are people who talk about if you could do something different in the world, what would you do? And one of the things I'd love to be able to do is be a physicist. I definitely couldn't. It would have to be a different brain inside of me. But I think it'd be amazing to really understand how the world works. And New York Times, an article about a tiny particle. You see the title there, that upends the laws of physics. And basically, we don't know a goddamn thing, Jarod. What we thought we knew, the physics is supposed to be the rules that govern how the world works. And as it turns out, there is a particle that we don't know anything about. And it's got all sorts of ramifications. It might one day be explained what dark matter is. Who knows what it could lead to? But I love the fact that we always want to know the future, we predict the future, project it and all of that. No one knows a goddamn thing. You fight like crazy to figure stuff out. You better always be open for change, because change is always coming, right? It doesn't mean science doesn't matter. It matters hugely. It just means you better keep a little wit about you. You better swallow your pride and get rid of it, things are happening all the time that change what we think matters, whether it's no one thinks this movie will be any good, no one thinks this TV show will be any good, or this movie is going to be great, and it's wrong. Two much more important things regarding science, including things like the virus. When people were trashing Fauci when he first said don't wear a mask one time a week into this, now they're talking right now how we basically have to worry about washing our hands the same. Of course we have to wash our hands, but it's not going to prevent you from getting COVID, is their point. You're not getting it from a surface almost for sure. We've known that for a while, but the CDC is saying this now. This is how science works. Keep an open mind to things, pay attention all the time, be reading all the time. But I just love that this applies. What's happening in the world of physics right now, which they're calling it like the Mars landing for physics, we need to apply to our regular lives. We don't really know a damn thing going forward.
Just piggybacking on what you said there, Coach. I mean, this is how science has always been, right? It's experiment. You figure something out. Ooh, that doesn't work. That's not what we thought happened. Continue. The difference now versus many, many years ago is that when a scientific theory was given to us, all of the work had been done and we weren't privy to seeing it go on step by step by step, right? Someone came out and said, no, based on all this years of data and research, here's what we've come up with. And it's like, oh, okay, fact. But we're seeing it happen with coronavirus in real time.
Right.
A year ago, we thought X. 6 months later, that's not quite right. It's more of this. And there's one thing that as human beings, we, the collective, we do not like, and that is uncertainty, right? That makes us nervous and confused, and we need yes, no, white, black, up, down, right? That's how our brains work. So whenever we get different, it's like people freak out and don't know how to handle, but this is science, folks. You experiment, it changes. Okay, this is different. Now it's this, now it's this. We move from here. And that process is obviously very difficult for a certain segment of the population to grasp.
Yeah, just to finish that, then I want to go to your video. A friend of mine yesterday, a coach, every day I say to him, have you got your vaccine yet? He's a young man that I mentored. And he hasn't got one yet. He's married with kids. And I say, what are you waiting for? Like, what information is going to finally come out to convince you that it's okay? He said, well, I read today 125 million people have had the vaccine, only 0.025 have any reaction at all, whatever the number was. And I said, so the 100 million that they studied last week wasn't enough, but 125 is enough. But to your point, that uncertainty, it does disturb a certain segment of the population, thankfully not a lot. So on to your great video about the Final Four. You made me think of something that very much defines my coaching philosophy, which is the great Harvey Penick, which I reference all the time. He taught putting that you got to get the speed right and give luck a chance. He's like, if you spend all your time on the break, whatever, and you whack the ball or hit it way too short, it got no shot. You better make sure you get the speed right, and then you better just hope you got lucky enough to read the break the way you did. But you got to get that speed right. And I love that give luck a chance. That's exactly what all these sporting events are. At the end of the day, Belichick and Brady. Okay, now it's just Brady, but Belichick deserves his credit too. If you were lucky to be on their team, there's a good chance you're going to be competing for a lot of championships, right? Everyone else clearly wasn't going to. LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, like there's very few guys that are winning championships. We know the Spurs did. Just to get to the Final Four, you've done yeoman's work, like you talked about with Chris Paul. You got it, and Chris Paul might have made a championship had it not been for that hammy, right? He probably would have won a title. We all think he would have, right? Is that the only conference finals he made?
That's the only one he's been in.
So he was up 3-2 against the incredible Warriors with Kevin Durant and got hurt. Yeah, and you give luck a chance. They didn't have him from there. That's the recipe you've got to go about it. That's why I always say build a 55-plus win team and live with it. Stop maneuvering and try to get to 65 because you end up blowing up your future. Find a way to win 55 year after year after year. Give luck a chance like Dallas did that one year. They went to 2 finals. They won 1. But they were relevant for a long time. That's a great job for your fan base.
Yeah, I mean, our friend Daryl Morey says that, right? You got a 5% chance, go in on it, and give yourself a shot at it, because we like to think that it's always in the end. Oh, this was already preordained. And it's not. It's not preordained. That's the story we tell ourselves at the end, but it isn't like that. You go back to, we just said it. They were a hammy away from beating the mighty, unbeatable Golden State Warriors, who had they lost that one, because that was the first title run with Durant, who knows what the NBA would look like right now, right? These things change, especially at that level, we're talking about little things. We're talking about a fraction here, a bounce of the ball here, little tiny, the margins are thin, the higher up you get. And so we really need to celebrate the greatness that is everywhere. And I wanted to continue on this Jokic point.
Yeah.
What I'm starting to see about Jokic is, I talked about it with the physicist article you brought up about human beings and the way we think about things in dichotomy, right? Either or, nuance and gray, it's too much. We have to have left, right, hot, cold. We're doing this thing right now with Jokic, and I'm hearing from a lot of media members, and it's dangerous. And I won't do this, and I know you don't do this, but we need to start thinking about how we hear things. So one of the big things about Jokic is, and why everybody's so excited about him being this MVP candidate beyond the impressive numbers he's putting up, is because, wow, isn't he so different than so many other MVPs? He's so unathletic. It's all his brain. He's super smart. And it's got these weird undertones in things that we do when we talk about certain types of athletes versus others, right? It's this guy's a gym rat. This guy just outworks everybody else, right? And it's the idea of valuing and capitalizing or promoting the mind, typically of the white athlete, and the body and physical raw tools of the black athlete, right? Now, in no way am I saying that Nikola Jokic and LeBron James are the same level athlete. That's just not true. Anybody with eyeballs can see that. But in terms of mind, intelligence, all that, LeBron James, Chris Paul, all these top guys are just as intelligent as Nikola Jokic when it comes to playing basketball, right? And we need to make sure that we talk about them in both ways. And Nikola Jokic, while he may not have a 40-inch vert, he's still in the NBA. So he's still a better athlete than the majority of people that walk the face of the earth, right? So just something I was thinking about as we're talking about Jokic.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about Jokic too. And to your point, I'll get to for sure. First of all, so how do we define athleticism? Are we talking about track and field?
Right.
Because if we're talking about track and field, Jokic would never qualify for anyone's team ever.
Right.
Okay. But we're not talking about track and field. That's not the way our game is played. Track and field is what it's called, track and field. This is basketball. If you watch that cat play, which I like to do because he's amazing, he bounces off people, maneuvers in the paint, and somehow delivers like this feathery 8-footer. There's like 11 people in the history of the world that ever did that like he does. No, it's very hard to do. Imagine the world's greatest ballet dancers doing that in like a bumper car event. Like, that's how hard it is for him to make the shots he makes. That's athleticism too. That's just not explosive athleticism, right? Steph Curry I don't think he's ever won a dunk contest. I don't think he ever will win a dunk contest. Right. At least not on a 10-foot basket, he won't. But to say he's not an athlete is to not understand what the word means, right? That's all parts of it too. That's why there are shooting things in the Winter Olympics, which is about sports. There's bow and arrow, bowling. Well, maybe bowling isn't in there, although I think they're trying to get it in. But I know in the archery, they ain't moving, they're standing still. Okay? And there's plenty of fat golfers out there. That doesn't mean they're not very athletic in their own way. Race car drivers might be as athletic as anyone in the business, but they're not going to win a track and field competition typically, right? So, Jokic is, to your point, I almost don't even want to get into it because it gets me so angry. Black and white, Asian, whatever, intelligence is a different thing for these players. Many of them are pattern geniuses in a way that I never will be. I think I'm really smart. I can read basketball like it's a matrix, but their pattern recognition is off the scale. I've said this to many of my players, if there wasn't basketball and you grew up in my household, you might have been a physicist. The way you process information as rapidly as you do in my household, you might have been a physicist. But because there's basketball and you got to be 6'9" when you were 16, you play basketball. And your mind and your body helped you get to the NBA. Absent one or the other, you would have stopped short somewhere. You made it to college, maybe to stop at high school. There's a whole lot of really great athletes that never even came close to the NBA for lots of different reasons, right? Jokic is a brilliant athlete. He just isn't an explosive one. And you know what? Neither is Chris Paul. Right. He ain't no dummy. That dude, James Harden, these guys are recognizing things. If you had to start their life over, a lot of these players, Chauncey Billups, and you put them in the household of chess players, I would think this is my just thinking out loud, I think they'd be genius chess players. because chess is all about understanding down the road, right? Move 5, move 9, move 12. You have to see what's coming, and you've got to recognize the pattern of your opponent and how they play and what they probably will do when you do what you do. Well, basketball is the same way, right? Basketball is, I know my guy normally tries to blow up when I go for my handoff, so I'm going to go backdoor. But I'm going to show him I'm going for the handoff, then I'm going to go backdoor. Conley did it the other day in the Utah Phoenix game, where they ran a play late in the game, and Conley got a wide open layup. But how do you do it? Well, he knew the other team wasn't going to defend the paint because they were guarding the 3, because they were up more than one possession, so you have to guard the 3. And he knew the guy guarding him was going to blow up the handoff. So he take the handoff, went back to him. Like, a high school kid ain't doing that unless you tell him to do it. But he's reading what's going on. It's a different level. Yeah, Jokic, though, is as beautiful to watch as any player we have, unless you only want to see dunks.
Yeah, he's incredible. And Denver, they are coming on like a house on fire right now. And, they're legit, right? This team went to the conference finals last year. And also, they have what I like to call, I make up the term, but they have institutional knowledge, right? And they have experience as a crew together going through the playoffs, getting their ass kicked and coming back, right? And as you know, Coach, there is value to that, right? So in a stressful situation, their core guys know, I know what this guy's going to do. I know what they feel that together. And MPJ is coming on to that. And we talked about Aaron Gordon, how so far through, a week or however long it's been since the trade deadline, that seems to be the best pickup that a team has made, because now you're asking him to do something he is overqualified to do. So it's awesome. No, you don't initiate anything. We got you. Jokic will find you. You rebound, you defend, no problem. And it's money, and it's working out so well. Mike Malone's got them playing well. Denver's a team that, if the standings stay where they are right now, and I think seeding is important, Coach, and I kind of want to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
In the NBA, we said it's luck, right? But you want to increase your odds, right, and your chance of getting to the ultimate prize. Well, the more good teams you have to, or better teams you have to play on your way to the ultimate prize, the harder it is for you, right? If you got to come out of the West and beat Denver and both LA teams, or Denver and LA team and Utah, that's a lot to ask, right? It's a lot just to get to the NBA Finals. Unless you're really, really good, probably not going to happen. If the Lakers right now, and the way they're sort of sliding in the standings, their road to the NBA Finals looks like it'll be quite challenging. And that's, again, assuming LeBron and Davis come back 100% health, which it could happen, but that's an assumption.
Right. Well, we've said this before on the show, I'm sure. In golf, the Masters is going on right now. Ever since Tiger stopped being the best, I haven't watched golf. I just like watching him. Like I wasn't alone, clearly. But in golf, you'd rather be in second place down 7 strokes than in 7th place down 2 strokes, or 3 strokes, or 4 strokes. There's just so many other guys you have to beat. This is what you're talking about the Lakers. They're going to have so many good teams that to get through, that it's just harder to do it. Doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just harder to do it. You spoke for 90 seconds about the Nuggets, eloquently so, and never mentioned Jamal Murray.
I know. I didn't even talk about Murray.
Talk about intelligent player. Murray is an enigma to those that watch him casually, because he is a bucket getter. Like, we cannot forget what he did in the postseason last year, right? And the show he and Donovan Mitchell put on. But he is a disciplined, a guy that's not afraid of hard work. If you know his story and how his dad raised him, very different than I raised my son. But clearly it worked because he's in the NBA and he's amazing. And he's a shot maker. He's a tough shot maker. So they don't have but 2 of those guys, but that's all the Lakers got. 2 of them, right? If you can get 2 guys that can make tough shots, you're in the money. And they do. They've got, and both are primary ball handlers in Jamal and Jokic. So, and they've really, some industrial, what do you call it? Institutional knowledge.
Yep.
They've been together for a while, those 2. They're drafted players from the Nuggets. Mm-hmm. They've been in that institution from day one. There's value to that. So, as you say, so I think they're scary good. Yeah. Will Barton needs to play well. Mm-hmm. He's not the athlete he once was before the injury. Aaron Gordon upgrades their athleticism significantly, which I think is important. They are young. We'll see how their bench does. and what they choose to do with, do they bring MPJ out early, get him back in with the second unit? They do that with Gordon. There's time to play with that a little bit. You're going to get to this. I know the Nets and the lineups they're playing with. The Nuggets don't have as much time, and they're in a seeding crunch, so they want to win. The Jazz have won 23 straight home games after losing the first 2 of the season. So you don't want to have to play them in Game 7 on the road. At least and they're probably going to pack the house in Salt Lake City. So these wins are important. But Denver needs to play with some things to see how they best want to play with their second unit. But no, they're for real. Yeah, they're for real. I want to talk with the KD and Dre thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the Jordan Danny Ainge golf game. I know a few players. I've coached a few in my life. 80-something NBA guys alone. Man, they will beat their son's ass in horse or their daughters. I'm not that way. Like we cheated in Candyland with our kids to make them lose, to teach them how to lose with integrity, and just to see how they dealt with it. It was part of what we thought our job was as parents, but we weren't sadistic about it. And when I was introducing my son to playing basketball when he was 9 or 10, I played only left-handed, and so the games were competitive. But I pretty much always won. I wanted to have fun. I didn't want to kill them, and these players are killers. But they are. And Randy made a funny laugh. Yes, Randy, don't tell me how to raise my kid. That's how we did it. If I knew my son wanted the gumdrop, I would make sure he got the lollipop. Just to deal with it. Deal with it, son. These guys, they know how to turn that off, Jarod. Like, okay, the guy threw the ball up, the game starts, I want to crush him. But 2 hours later, 2 days later, whatever, they're human beings. You're allowed to do both. It doesn't make them soft. I know from experience with these guys. Ain't nothing soft about them.
Nothing.
And in fact, I think the Morris twins, didn't they both get ejected yesterday?
They sure did.
They weren't fighting each other, were they? They love each other. They were, yeah. I mean, come on now. These guys there's nothing soft about it. And it's funny. I wish Draymond would have been honest right away. I wish he said, no. I didn't call him crying. I called him upset that we lost, saying, hey. But remember, there were people writing about Durant going to Golden State long before that phone call was made.
Right.
There was already talk from his camp. We talked about ESPN a lot, literally a year beforehand. But yeah, these guys, it's silly to think they can't be ultra competitive.
Right. And
not get along. Just like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, we knew how to be respectful in each other's company if they weren't trying to kill each other in the business battlefield too. They can do both.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it's important to just recognize the humanity of these guys, right? To fans and particularly if you're a diehard of a team, it's so important to you, the win, the loss. And it's more so important to them, but they have to have a way to, when it ends. And they have to, all right, I'll come back next year or next game or whatever it is, but they have to be able to compartmentalize it. And in that industry, as we talk about all the time, the NBA is a fraternity, man. At any one time, only 450 guys in the league. The amount of people who played in the NBA that are alive, walking the earth, ain't a lot of people, right? So, of course, they're all friends and know each other. That's just how it goes because they're part of an elite, exclusive club. That's just life.
Well, and not just that, but I referenced Tiger Woods earlier. You hear what these golfers say about Tiger Woods, man? That dude made all of them so much money. They were all huge Tiger Woods fans, and not just because they respected his game. It's because they were feeding their grandchildren too, their future grandchildren. Tiger upped the ante. Well, so does Steph Curry and LeBron James and all these amazing players. And more people watching, the money goes up and everybody wins. So to just ask these players to hate a competitor who in many cases helping them feed their families going forward for generations, it's just stupid. Why would we ever think that? Yeah, that doesn't mean there won't be rivalries. That doesn't mean there won't be issues where guys don't get along. They're just humans. So there's no accounting firm in America, I'm quite sure of this, where everyone's best friends with each other all the time, right? And they all want the same promotion, doesn't mean they can't get along. Come on, man.
I'm with you there, Coach.
All right, did you see my Wiseman article?
I sure did. I was going to go right to that. So James Wiseman, obviously the Warriors are having a challenging season. Speaking of, getting to the conference finals and how lucky you are. Look, the Warriors lived in rarefied air. There's a reason why you can only count on one hand the amount of teams that have gone to multiple finals in a row. Again, this shit is hard, right? Now, they're just living like how the rest of the NBA lives, like, right? Regular. This is what regular life is like for everyone else. And how this relates to Wiseman is that Wiseman comes onto a team with a transcendent player in Curry, with a guy like Draymond Green. Clay's obviously hurt, but the idea is, well, we want his learning curve to be steep, right? And quick, so that he can come right in and we can get back to championship lore. And that is a lot to ask for a rookie, a hell of a lot. In the history of the NBA, we've rarely seen a rookie come in and be able to dominate and help a team win the finals. Yes, Magic jump center, all that. Kareem was also on the team that year, right?
Right. And Jamal Wilkes.
Right. A lot of things have to go right for a rookie to be that integral on a title team. The Warriors were never going to be a title contender this year. But Coach, what I love what you so eloquently brought out in the article, not only is Wiseman a super athlete, he's also used to being good at everything. And I think it's very hard for anybody when you're used to being good at everything to come to something now that you've been good at and struggle. His brain probably doesn't know how to handle that. And part of the reason that you brought up, and I want you to go into further detail, is he's trying to do a billion things at once, and this game is too fast for that. You got to cut out 99% of the stuff you're trying to do.
I think so, especially the Magic Johnson comparison is so smart to talk about because Magic was a point guard his whole life, which means he was always taller than everyone in his position his whole life. He was used to it, right? Nothing changed when he got to the NBA. He was still the tallest point guard ever, really. No one ever been saw 6'9" at point guard before. And yeah, he had Kareem. And one of my favorites all the time, Jamal Silk Wilkes. I used to shoot like him for fun. I loved him. He was a brilliant player, a crazy brilliant player, and a teammate of Jabbar's at UCLA. Maybe he came after Jabbar, but won championship there too. I forget now. I'm an old man. But Wiseman can't do any of the same things except for jumping dunk the way he did growing up because he's playing with guys his size now for the first time, right? And Steph Curry's on his team. And they're the Warriors. In his mind, they're still the Warriors. We all see him now, like you said, and my buddy Zach Lowe said this in his podcast the other day. Same thing you just said. Welcome to the NBA now. You guys are living on a different planet for a while. Congratulations. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But these are the aches and pains that the rest of the world has been going through in the league for pretty much perpetually, right? You might get beat by 55 in a game, right? You might not have anyone on the bench score more than 4 points in a game, the different problems they've had. So I mentioned the article. I saw a really great interview with Wiseman where he talked about how Kevin Durant calls him every day or texts him. Kyrie, all the time. Like he's like, I talk to players all the time. And he's saying this, and it's so adorable and sweet. And isn't it nice? Just like we were talking about. These guys can be competitive with human beings, but it's bad for him. I guarantee you, they're not the only ones in his head talking to him. And they're sweet to do it. But he's got coaches talking to him, his team, his high school coach, all of his friends. Like he's got too much. And so you got to cut that noise out. And you got to keep it simple. They're running like pin downs for him. He's shooting threes off the dribble, off the catch. He's going full court because he sees Embiid doing, Jokic doing, or Adebayo. And he can do all of those things. And I didn't write this, but this is what I was thinking. He would do those things in high school, Jarod, and he would succeed one of every 4 times, but it was potential. Ooh, look at him go coast to coast. They didn't care for the turnovers. He was winning all those games anyway in high school. But in the NBA, no, it's just the turnovers, right? If he's successful one or 4 times, well, they're losing by 50. So save that. So that's my thing. And I've been lucky enough to coach players. I don't know if I've ever had one as talented as him. Pretty close. I've had some pretty talented players at that size. And I've always tried to narrow their focus. And you can't, if I'm not coaching them in a game, that's up to their coaching staff. But keep it simple. Let him do what he can do because you want to have success. I finished the article with him smiling about something. He had missed a dunk. He contested Brook Lopez behind 3. He ran the court, which you want. I think Steph Curry got a rebound because Steph Curry immediately recognized it, threw it, maybe Draymond, threw it ahead, wide open. This is a 7-foot guy with a 7'6" wingspan, goes right-handed, he's left-handed, goes right-handed and missed dunk badly. Came back on defense, got the rebound. The Warriors came down and scored. Bucks called timeout, and someone must have said like, nice missed dunk or whatever they joked about. And he had this sheepish but sweet smile on his face, and I just thought, yes, like we need more smiles from you, James. Like it's hard. It's so hard. Try to have fun in the hardness of it. Stop expecting to be Embiid. He wasn't any good as a rookie. I mean, he was better than Wiseman, but he wasn't this guy. And he played a whole year of college, right? And didn't have a pandemic. And I write about this. They had summer league. Well, Embiid didn't, but Embiid was out for a year, right, with an injury. And game can catch up to you a little bit. This whole rookie class, not just Wiseman, all of them have had nothing but the nastiest of curveballs thrown at them. Nothing but the nastiest of curveballs. And in his case, he only played 3 college games. So Hollinger has this great article about how it's really important for Golden State to see what they got.
Yeah.
Is he someone that by maybe February of next year, so 10, 11 months from now, can be someone that they can count on to play with Dre and Clay and Steph?
Mm-hmm.
Or might they, as I heard Zach Lowe talk about, a lot of people were talking about this. Does he play well enough for the Warriors to say, okay, we're going to trade you and contracts for, let's say, Karl-Anthony Towns, which is what Zach talked about, and we'll give Minnesota the #1 pick back.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yep.
Which is not protected if
Right.
it's their own team drafting it, right?
Right.
So they can get the #1 pick in the draft potentially, and Wiseman for Karl-Anthony Towns, and now they've got Wiseman and the draft pick with Edwards. It's not a bad play for Minnesota. And so Golden State needs to play that up if indeed they want to do that. And then they could go Karl-Anthony Towns is amazing, right? Mm-hmm. That's definitely something that can happen. And I don't know that they shouldn't do it with the Warriors if they can get that done and get Karl-Anthony Towns. It would make some sense. So we need to be patient with rookies in general, especially this year.
Yeah, what I loved about your article too is something you say and I say all the time: progression isn't linear, right? Like, and we're writing these kids off at 19. It's like, dude, he has no idea what he's doing out there right now. And I think this is the challenge when you're a team like the Warriors. They've lived this rarefied air and this special life. And Lacob is probably out here thinking, light years, we're just going to keep this going forever. And it's like, no, dude, it's not possible. Like, because in order for you to keep that going forever, you literally have to make sure you consistently have the next generational superstar in the wings so that the minute Curry retires, no problem, this guy's ready. Like, that's probably not going to happen. It's highly unlikely. And winning 3 titles as they did, because a lot of the fans are complaining we're wasting Steph's prime. And it's like, dude, you guys got 3 titles. Like, what wasted prime are you talking about? Like, most teams aren't getting 1. Like, you got 3. Like, I think, but it's this idea of more and more, we can keep doing it. And it's just that's not how the NBA works. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Dirk was a transformational player like Steph was, different transformational, but transformational nonetheless. They went to 2 finals, 1-1, right? The Warriors went to 5. Right. You're exactly right. When I thought they should draft Wiseman, it was to do just what you said just now, which is as Curry ages out, and we don't know when that's going to be. Look at Chris Paul, look at Kyle Lowry. Like, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with these older guards and Curry right now is one of the best players in the world, if not top 3, right? Maybe top 2, top 1 even. So whatever that is, give me 2, 3, 4 years. Wiseman's going to be that guy, I think, at the perfect time. So it's not his fault that they suck. Right. He's a rookie who didn't get any of this preparation. It's the front office, it's the bench, whatever. It ain't James Wiseman's fault. In the article I mentioned, I think I remember this. Who knows, Willie, what you remember? But I was a big Magic fan in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't working with pros until 99. So I rooted for a lot of teams. But I like the Magic the best because I lived close by. And Kevin Garnett's first ever game in Orlando, I watched all the games. I wanted to see what this young rook looked like. They didn't go to college. Back then, I thought you should go to college ever. He was terrible. And I found the game on YouTube. It's not pretty to watch because it's so grainy. And he was terrible, really bad. But like literally, the announcer for the Magic was laughing. He was laughing at how he couldn't guard people. And he was laughing and he got stripped easily. He missed an 8-foot shot. From almost the middle of the court, he almost shot a wedgie. Like, it was bad. But then, just a few weeks later, all of a sudden, he starts rolling, right? And became a Hall of Fame player. I don't know if Wiseman a double-double against Milwaukee at halftime.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen again. We'll see. He took less shots from the perimeter. That was encouraging. All of his buckets were at the rim, encouraging. He raced the court more. That was encouraging. Let's just see where this goes. But I'd say he's mindful of things. He's respectful. He holds himself accountable almost too much. But I'd rather that than blow everything off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad that he cares. I'm not ready to say he's not any good. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think, it's a good segue here to talk about his progression in terms of regular season and how you just need reps and what that means to transition to the Nets and sort of what they're doing in terms of the regular season and using it as a lab, right? You have a 72-game season and it's a super constricted schedule. You got COVID. You have all these various things that are making this more challenging than it's been in the past. And I said this to you last night when we talked on the phone, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that Steve Nash in his first year would have been experimenting with all these lineups as he has this season if Dinwiddie didn't tear his ACL 6 games into the season, if Durant didn't have 2 COVID stints and a long hamstring layoff, and now Harden's got I think by force, he has to play multiple combinations because we have to field a team to actually play basketball. And what he's found, I think, is, wow, I got some real interesting tools that I can bring. Coach, you talk about the suitcase, right? And pack it and what you can do. In the playoffs, versatility is important, right? Because you're going to be playing different kinds of teams. There's an Embiid team with a huge monster in the middle that you have to stop. There's Giannis. There's all different kinds of teams you have to play. The multiple ways you can attack them, better for you, right? And I think that's what Nash has found. He's used this as, hey, because our big three, they've only played 7 games together. And I think, Harden will be back in the next, week or so, and they can kind of move through the rest of the regular season and figure out, okay, here's what it looks like with these 3 guys. But the one thing I think that maybe we all didn't foresee is those 3 are working together better than I think most people would imagine, just because you talk about all the time, Coach. Durant's a very seamless, of all superstars, his number one quality may be he's the most interchangeable superstar in the history of the NBA.
I think that's true, actually. Jarod, I really think you're super smart to say that because LeBron isn't that.
No.
LeBron has to be the primary ball handler. He's better than Durant, although it's close in terms of career. But I think you're exactly right. I think Kevin Durant, nothing has to change, and he's going to be incredible no matter what you do. Any system, any roster, it doesn't matter. He's going to be incredible, productive, and efficient.
Yeah, and because he doesn't need to dominate the ball, right? You give it to him, he doesn't even need to dribble, catch, shoot, right? I mean, it's very simple for him to do that. And then you have Harden, who is an elite playmaker. And again, everyone looks back to Houston. That's how the Houston system was designed. But here, he don't got to go supernova and score 40. I can just table set. And then Kyrie can be that off-ball. Dude, you are the best when you are attacking and scoring. Don't worry, you do that. So those 3 that works well. Everybody's in sort of their natural role, whatever that means. And then now you're seeing, okay, who else I want to put out there? Joe Harris, if you put someone on the court with those 3, he's perfect.
Yeah.
Defend my butt off and I shoot. Perfect.
Play hard, play defense, shoot threes.
Yeah. Their challenge is that number 5 spot, right? What do they do there? In certain lineups, they got Jeff Green. If they want to play really good defense, I don't know if you saw the on-off numbers. When Claxton is on the floor, they're a 103 defensive rating. And that is by far the best of all their bigs. And he gives them a switchability that Aldridge and DeAndre do not give them. He can switch on to 1 through 5. And for stretches in the playoffs, they're going to need that. So I think Kerr is kind of looking at that and saying, okay, I got some tools here. And this may not be as challenging as everybody thought it would be.
But what about, would they play Blake some at 5?
They'll play Blake some at 5 as well. See, at the start of the season, the question was, this team's got no depth at the front court.
Oh, they're loaded now.
Now they got a log jab. Now it's like we got too many guys at the front court.
But they're old guys.
Yes.
Claxton is not an old guy. And yeah, I mean, I think we have a Kirk Goldsberry posted like last 15 games.
Yep.
And they're up to 16th in defense the last 15 games. So not where they need to be, but better, right? But I tell you what's interesting, the last 15 games, Kyrie's number 2 in the league in scoring at 29 a game.
And he's very efficient. His most efficient season ever.
Yeah, I didn't look at that, but yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, offensively, it's just a juggernaut. We know that. That isn't, nobody's worried about that. It's just a deep, but you see pockets where you're like, man, you guys can actually guard. My fear is that they do what teams do. And, I'm sure you've got investments and all that. Your financial advisor tells you this every time, right? And the SEC puts a disclaimer on the bottom. Past performance is not indicative of future results, right? Like, just because LaMarcus used to be good at one time doesn't mean they're going to be good. Matter of fact, it's likely they will not be good in the future, right? Because of age and all the various things. So I'm hoping that Nash doesn't fall in love with, well, I know these names work, and I can trust their floor to a certain extent. Whereas with Claxton, maybe you're a little bit, it's like we talked about before, the unknown. The first time I ran 12 miles, I was nervous to start. Why? Because I never run 12 miles before. Now, I don't think about it because there's no unknown there. With Claxton, there's that unknown, right? It's like he could be really high on the upside, but I don't know what that floor might be, and that makes me nervous. So I'm going to put in a vet who, not great.
Right. I'm a little worried. Worried is the wrong word. I think the biggest challenge is going to be come postseason, the big three just haven't played very much together. And so to just expect them to trust in the system is naive. It doesn't mean they won't do it. It's not so easy to do. And so the alternative is those guys could all play hero ball enormously successfully. But successfully enough to win in the playoffs, 4 games in 7, against at least a couple of good teams in the East. It's not the West. That's a challenge, and not upset the apple cart, so to speak. Right. I think that it seems like Kyrie is flat out just said, okay, it's James Harden's team. That's encouraging, right? And so if he allows that to happen, and if it turns out James and Durant anoint Kyrie in a particular game because of the matchup to go do your thing, and they're not really running their offense, but Kyrie's offense is enough, all right, that could work. It also could not work. We'll have to see, which is why I tell you this, I don't think they're going to have the greatest offense of all time in the postseason.
Probably not.
They have it now.
Right.
Okay. And so it's possible that they're going to need to play much better defense.
For sure.
And we'll have to see. And that takes some time too,
And I think, as we talked about in the Western Conference, seeding is going to matter in the East too. Because if you're the 1 seed, you only have to play one of those other 2 teams. But if you're 2 or 3, you're going to have to beat 2 out of the 3 likely to get to the NBA Finals. And again, it's all about, making your chances, what are the chances I'm going to get out of here? If I have to beat both of 2 out of these 3 teams, it's going to be really hard, right? Because it's just a lot to ask for any of these top 3 teams. And, Milwaukee's been, kind of teetering. Giannis's knee, I'm a little kind of concerned what's going on there, and Philly was always 1 injury away, right? I mean, that's always tenuous. If Embiid's knee acts up or Simmons, something happens to him, that's problematic for them too. So that's something to be wary of as well.
Well, we mentioned Claxton, and I thought in our document you threw him in smartly because I had mentioned now that Rondo's playing for the Clippers and played amazing last night. Terrence Mann's gone. This guy averaged 10 and 5 or 10 and 6 last month, and he did it the old-fashioned way. He did it like the old Jazz did with Deron Williams and Rodney Brewer. He got buckets in the paint on a team that doesn't do that. They live on the perimeter of the Clippers. You're the best shooting team in the league. Mann did his work as a guard inside and brought energy and can really pass. I really thought he was the point guard of their future. And now it's Rondo. And Pat Bev obviously is already there. And with Claxton and Brooklyn, because of those veterans that you talked about, I like young guys in the playoffs. I know that they are a little bit, they bring some randomness to the game, some uncertainty, as you said, but they also bring energy and fire and young legs. So that's too bad. I know we have time for one more thing, and you mentioned it. The Jazz lose to Phoenix. They went 11, I think, of 43 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
The game before that, they lost to Dallas, and Dallas also 11 of something from 3. They did a little better last night and blew Portland out. What were they last night?
We were 12 or 13 to 40 something last night.
Yeah, so they were, a little better, but bad, right? And yet they blew Portland out. So I want to hear your thoughts on the variance of threes, because I have some thoughts too, particularly on teams that are looking to shoot more threes and what's going on there.
Yeah, so threes are so interesting, right? Because it's such a high variance shot, and you may average as a team a 38 percentile for the season, right? And that's over thousands of threes you take or whatever the number is. But in a 7-game series, that's a short sample size, right? So let's say you take over the course of 7 games, 280 threes. Well, if you have 2 bad shooting nights, that's problematic.
Yeah.
You're losing those games. So now we're down 0-2, right? And then you're taking another random, game that happens here. Now we lost 3 games. Now we're in game 7. And so that is sort of your challenge when threes are your weapon of choice. I'm not saying it's a bad weapon. I'm just saying that's some of the random barriers that comes in. Particularly, I feel like for Utah, if you don't have more than one get your own bucket guy. And we know they got Mitchell. He can do that. We saw what he did last year in the postseason. But when you're playing against teams with bigger wings, who's their other wing guy who can just do that? Bogdanovich is pretty good, but I don't think anybody would confuse him for Paul George, right? Like, he ain't that good. So where's the other part of their offense coming from if the threes aren't falling? Who are we relying on to get that bucket?
All right, so this is not just about Utah. The teams are trying to shoot more threes. I think sometimes they lose themselves in that mission. And they just keep trying to shoot more threes instead of thinking about, I want to shoot more open threes. I find the Jazz tend to be chuckers sometimes. Jordan Clarkson being the lead chucker. Right? He is the guy to get his own shot. Mike Conley, who I adore and love and everything else, he's been chucking some too. He's had a great season. I just wrote about him the other day. But he is taking some contested threes. I don't think that's wise. Both of those guys can get buckets. Now, they need ball screens for it. Well, Clarkson doesn't. Conley does. Mitchell does it. Mitchell's extraordinary. He's the closest thing to Bernard King. He's smaller. Mm-hmm. But the way he's playing right now makes me think Bernard King. He is extraordinary offensive talent. And he's 24 years old. Like, he's still getting better. But the Jazz, all these teams who want to shoot more threes as a strategy need to be thinking open threes. Because if they're not open, well, then drive and get the open 2. Especially at the rim or in the paint, then I think they'd be better off. But you're right, that variance is going to be there. I would argue that they're an amazing shooting team, as the Clippers are. If they're mostly taking open threes, the chance of them shooting better are much higher. The good news for them is they're top 2 in defense, right? So this is where they have a margin for error bigger than most teams. Like they almost beat Phoenix on the road. They lost in overtime and went 11 of 43 from 3.
Yeah.
Now Phoenix shot poorly as well, but Utah really guards you. Utah, I think, is top 3 in the league in guarding threes in terms of limiting, because they're trying to make you go deal with the big French dude, who's having an extraordinary season on both ends, by the way. That's my last thing I'll say, to circle back to Wiseman article this week. Anyone who thinks they know James Wiseman, just go back and watch Rudy Gobert is looking good.
Oh, man.
Please. Same age, give or take a year, because Wiseman's very young. He just turned 20. Rudy had more experience playing high-level basketball than Wiseman did, but Rudy was terrible. Now, you could see it coming. I think I even tweeted out, like, he's going to be on the team that beats Team USA one day, if anyone ever beats Team USA. I may have written it. I don't remember. You could see it coming. He's so enormous. But now Rudy Gobert is fantastic, Jarod. Yes. On both ends. He's just terrific. Wiseman, just give him time, man. And Rudy's still getting better at 27, 20 years of age.
Yeah. I think a perfect place to end the show on is kind of where we all started, right? With this idea about winning championships and what it means and how much luck is involved. Look, a lot of people are down is the wrong word. They don't give the Jazz and the Suns any kind of chance because they're like, they don't have names, right? And it goes back to that whole past performance and future results. Well, we've seen them in the playoffs flame out. That means they won't do it. I bring this conversation up all the time. I remember having a conversation with Shaq about 3 years ago. And we're talking about the Houston Rockets. That was the year that Paul got injured. And I said to Shaq before the playoffs, I was like, the Rockets, man, I like them. There's something about this team this year. I think they can make a run. And Shaq goes to me, you don't have that championship DNA. And I go, Shaq, but nobody has championship DNA until they have a championship. Like, you didn't have it until you won one. What? How did we know you had it before? You have to just go through and do it. He's like, his deep really was, excellent point. You're right. And it's just like, maybe Utah gets lucky because look, they're gonna need some luck. Maybe they get lucky and it happens and they win the championship. But if they get to the Final Four, it doesn't mean they stink. It's just
a lot of good teams, a lot of good teams, a lot of good players, a lot of good coaches, and you need to get a little bit lucky. And in the age of COVID right now, it's hard to get lucky.
Well, folks, have an awesome weekend. Make sure you tune in on Monday. Mondays with Tom Haberstroh. I'm sure he's gonna have some fancy numbers for us all to look at. Thank you, Coach Thorpe. Thank you, Judy. Henry, Hope you're doing a good job watching those whales and dolphins out there.
And seals. And seals. Be safe, everyone.